If anybody's sitting in a new house, today is the day. Mizmor Shir Chanukat Habayit LeDavid, chapter 30, a psalm of David. Right? It's not just a psalm of any psalm of David. It's for the dedication of the house. So we think, was this something that David wrote? Rashi says, others said that David wrote it, and it was to be said when the Beit HaMikdash was to be dedicated. So did he say this? Maybe if you think about, remember back all the way when David asks Natan HaNavi, he says, I'm sitting in a beautiful cedar palace, and God is sitting there in the closet. God should have a home. And Natan HaNavi says, oh, what a wonderful, fabulous idea. Amazing. We should build God a Beit HaMikdash. David's all excited. Natan comes back the next day and says to David, God said, I took you from the corner, I took you from the field, you were a little nothing, and I made you into my ruler, and you'll be the head of a dynasty, but it's not time to build a Beit HaMikdash. That's not your job. Your son will build it to me. Was it written during that day in that excitement? Was it written in the aftermath? And when we'll get to Divrei Hayamim, we'll see that David does a lot of preparation. We just think, oh, David doesn't build the temple. Shlomo builds the temple. We'll see in Divrei Hayamim, David does a lot of the advanced work. He may not be there for the groundbreaking, but he's gathering materials. We know already that he buys the field, is the last chapter of the book of Shmuel. Bet if you want to put it aside. So how is this a David? How is it? And if it's talking about the Beit HaMikdash, that's one understanding. Others could say, no, it's just about David's house. He built this large palace, so maybe it is about his house, and it was built in advance of the building of his house, and he wants to see it as a place of God. Okay, let's see what it says. Aromimcha Adonai ki dilitani, velo simachta oivali. I praise you, God, right? I bring strength to you, God, because you have lifted me up, and you have not let my enemies rejoice over me. Something we've seen a lot in the early chapters. Question of the enemies, what's his relationship with the enemies? What are his enemies going to do to him? Adonai Elohai, shivati elecha vatir pe'ani. God, I cry out to you. What did you do? You healed me. Think back, was it the 11th, the 12th chapter where he says over and over again, I called out, where are you? I cried out, where are you? I'm trying. Here, there's this recognition. I called out and you listened to me. I was in pain, I was in suffering, and you healed me. Adonai ha'aliti min sha'ol nafshi. You brought me up from Sha'ol, from the netherworld. Chigitani miyor devor. You preserved me from going down into the pit. Is this about a specific thing in David's life when he's running away from Shaul, when he's running away from other enemies, the difficulties that he has, or is it just a general statement? However you want to understand. We know that's the truth in life. We all go through problems. We all go through struggles. Zamrula Adonai Chasidav. Faithful to God, sing to him, Vahodu, and give praise, give thanks, Lezecher Kadsho, to his holy name. Remember his name. Remember who it is on the day, right? We know we have a blessing, Birkat HaGomel. When you're in a dangerous situation, when you're in a difficult situation, you should thank God for taking you out of that situation, going through the desert, being sick and being healed, etc., etc. Continuing verse 6. Ki rega vapo chayim birtzono, be'erev yalin bechi v'laboker rina. Because God's anger is just a rega. It is a moment. It's not something that lasts. God was angry at me. I was in the pit. I was in the Sha'ol. I was sick. I was harmed. World might run differently today. We don't have the same belief. God's intervention in this world is different than it was back then. We don't have Kriyat Yam Suf, right? We don't have the splitting of the Red Sea. We don't have these incredible miracles. We also don't have the sense that I sin and God punishes me immediately. So we have a very different theological understanding. The rabbis already in the Talmud understand this. It's part of a larger question for a different time. But going back to that time, which was a much stronger God was much more involved in a apparent and obvious way in the world. God's anger happens. I get sick. This happens. This punishment happens to me, but it's only a rega. It's only a moment. But when God is pleased, it's something that lasts forever. And so we may lie down at night weeping and crying. Night representing privation, representing darkness, representing difficulty, or just night generally. I'm worried. I'm scared. But by the morning, v'la boker rina. But in the morning, I'm calling out in joy. Things have changed. Things are better. So here again, this recognition, there's sadness, there's difficulty, there's hardship in the world. But v'la boker rina v'yani amarti v'shalvi. And when things were fine to me, this is sort of the key verse in this chapter. I said to myself, when it was shalva, when it was peace, when it was tranquility, when everything was fine, ba'alet mot le'olam. Nothing bad's going to ever happen. I'm not going to stumble. I'm not going to be shaken. There's going to be no problems. Everything is going to be fine. That's verse 7. right? I thought everything would be fine. Adonai birtzoncha hemadata lahorios, histarta panecha va'iti nival. Because God, when you were pleased, I was as strong as a mountain. I had no worries. Not like the mountain in the last chapter. You could say that that's why these chapters are placed together. One seemingly doesn't have too much to do with the other. But the last chapter, the mountains were quaking by God. Here I was firm, I was strong, I was a mountain, nothing was going to happen. But when you hid your face, his starta panecha, Haiti Nivhal, I was terrified. So I thought everything was going to be fine. I thought my life was perfect, and I thought there would be no problems. And I was a mountain. And I may have talked about this in the past at one point. If you think of the life of David HaMelech, everything seems perfect. Yishai shows up at his house. Yes, he's ignored. He's left to the side. He's not one of the children who seems to be. Yishai Shmuel shows up to the house, considered to be king, but then he's made king. He becomes right. He becomes a great warrior for Shaul. He becomes Shaul's musician. He becomes Shaul's son-in-law. It's all this way, this way, this way. It all looks like it's going to be perfect. He's just going to become king. And then Shaul wants to kill him, and he has to run away, and he has to feign lunacy, and he has to join the Philistines. He has to run to Moab. All of a sudden, everything looked perfect. God said, you're going to be king. He was anointed, and it looked like it was going to be a very, very easy road to victory. And then all of a sudden, things get very, very difficult. And so I thought I would never be shaken. I thought nothing bad would ever happen. I thought everything would be perfect. But that's not what ends up happening. Life is fragile. Life is not so simple. Verse 8, Adonai birtzoncha hemadata lo rios, histarta panecha iti nafal. I just read that verse, my apologies. Elecha Adonai ekrav yel Adonai etchanan. When I was in that place, I called to you, God. I appealed to you. Ma betza bidami beradati al shachata yitcha afar aidira mitecha. What is to be gained from my death, from my descent into the pit? Can dust praise you? Can it declare your faithfulness? We've had this a number of times. We'll have it more times, this idea of, don't kill me, God. I can't praise you. Well, wouldn't it be good if I'm dead? What joy can I bring? What greatness can I bring? How can I make your name more renowned and more known in the world? Shema Adonai v'chaneni. Adonai heyeh ozerli. Hear me, God. Have mercy on me. God, be my helper. So right in this chapter, seems everything's fine. Seems everything's good. There's never a problem in life. Everything is perfect. But that's not the case. We're not just on a straight line. We're not just a strong mountain. There's going to be difficulty. There's going to be trouble in during our lifetime. We're going to feel like we're going down into the pit. But God, help me. But what happened, God? You took me out of the pit. You turned my lament into dancing. You undid my sackcloth and gave me. You tied me up with joy. Think of October 7th. I don't have them, but I've seen sweatshirts and T-shirts and different things. We will dance again about the Nova Festival, the destruction, the horror can't ever make up for it, but we will dance again. And that's in a sense is what David is saying. My whole being, when we dance again, my whole being will sing songs to you forever. I will not be silent. I will praise God forever. And so here in this chapter, make one last point about it, the sense of everything seems fine, everything seems perfect, I have no trouble, I have no worries. That's not the case. That's just not the case. That's not life. Everything seems fine. Oh, by the way, your father-in-law wants to kill you. You have to be lowered out the window by your wife and go on the run and go make believe you're a lunatic so the Philistines take you in, and then go to Moab and go to here and travel all around and be on the run and be on the road and be treated not nicely. And it's a very difficult thing. But one last point let me just make, which I think is worth saying, is that this is said, it's a Mizmor Shir Chanukata Beit David. It's about a house, whether that be the Beit HaMikdash or whether that be the house of David. And truth be told, I like the latter even better, because a house represents an idea of security. Think of the holiday of Sukkot. We leave the secure place, our house, and we go out into the hut, demonstrating our reliance upon God, like the Jews in the Midbar. Whether you think it's because God gave them clouds of glory or God gave them materials to make huts in the desert, the holiday is about a reliance upon God. This chapter, I'm building this house, I'm building this palace, David says. And that's what I like it about his palace even better. Look at me, amazing palace. Everything seems fine. I am secure. I'm in this fortress. I have everything I want. Everything is perfect. Life is fragile. You think everything is easy, everything's perfect, nothing bad's going to happen. COVID. Unfortunately, the horrors of October 7th. And we think in life, whether it be unfortunate sickness, whether it be a national tragedy, that's just not the way the life is. And so, yes, I'm building this house. I feel secure. I have a lot of money in the bank. Everything seems fine. Life is not that simple. Life is fragile. I'll be down in the pit. Bad things will happen. Trouble will come with me. And when I feel that way, that God has hidden his face, I'll turn back to you, God. Elecha Hashem ekra ve'el Hashem etchanan. And this chapter is saying God will answer. And hafachta mispadi l'macholi. That sackcloth, the ashes, the difficulty will once again turn to joy and happiness. May it happen soon. And as we say, like I said, about the Nova Festival and other things, may we be once again be dancing very soon in the future.